A kid from Pallet Town with a brand new world to see. I don't know what's ahead, but it won't get the best of me.
I left it up to you guys and y'all voted. Y'all some Hoenners. Even so, you guys knew it was coming eventually. So the question is, how good is the Hoenn region? You champions have already been through before. We're talking about Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, and of course the Oras remakes. Anything else we don't care about. Ash, I don't care about your anime. Your movies, they're trash. We're only going to talk about the main games. And of course, I'm going to talk about what they brought to the table. Now, if you haven't seen how good is Pokemon Johto and Kanto, I suggest you go check those out as well. Regardless, I want to sincerely thank you guys for all the support. These are the best videos on my channel, and I really appreciate everything, so thank you. And I suggest you stick to the end of this video. You may actually have a surprise, so let's go ahead and get started. How good is the Hoenn region? Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire came out around 2002. That was around a year that nobody had any morals. In case you don't remember, that was a game that your mom put you in the back of a truck like some luggage. Oh, but it did not end there. Don't forget that your dad, he was a gym leader, and he almost didn't remember you. After you finally get to meet him, he cares more about getting his boy Wally a Rhodes. As a matter of fact, he hates you so much he makes you help him. But I digress, because 2 years later, Emerald came out. Now, of course, just like the previous two generations, this was the definitive edition. Now, inside Pokemon Emerald, there was a couple things that they added, but of course, there's a couple things that they just really didn't need to do. For example, the 8th gym leader wasn't Wallace anymore, it was Hoenn. But besides that, Emerald did a lot of things that people love, such as adding the Battle Frontier. However, before we roll into that, don't forget, Oras came out in 2014, and while fans hated that it never got a Battle Frontier, which I do too, it still added a lot of content that the previous games did not have. The new Mega Evolutions and the extra episode were nothing but a plus. And now, while I am a big fan of Hoenn, we're going to have to break it down fairly. So let's get started. What are the pros inside Hoenn? The first pro on the list are the Pokemon. There's not too many misses on here. As I scroll through this list, there's not any Pokemon on here you're like, man, this one sucks. There's no Dunsparces, no Stantlers, nothing like that. Compared to the Johto region that had 8 different babies, there's only 2 in this generation, so it's not that bad. And besides that, when you look at the starters, I think that they're pretty balanced. I don't see people that love Torchic a lot more than Mudkip or vice versa. They're pretty even. This was also the generation GameFreak decided to be a little bit more flexible with the Pokemon. For example, Cast Form. Besides his questionable design, this is a Pokemon that can change its form depending on the weather. There's no other Pokemon that does that. And not to mention, inside Oras, this is the only set of Pokemon besides Kanto that got Mega Evolutions. And you know what that means? They just completely skipped over the Johto starters. They didn't give them nothing. So for a mere Pokemon standpoint, this generation was really better than Johto. Now, I'm not the one to argue with you about Kanto. I think they're pretty dead set even. But majority of people are going to take the Hoenn Pokemon over the Johto Pokemon. So that's for sure a plus. The next pro I got on here is the Battle Frontier and the Delta episode. Now, it really does suck that Oras has Delta and the originals only have the Battle Frontier. But to give Game Freak its rare credit, there is a reason for that, and I don't want to spoil the game for you. But regardless of which side you believe is better, extra content is still extra content. Now, to start with the Battle Frontier, it was nothing but a plus. After you finish putting down all the gym leaders, including Hoenn, you get to go fight harder challengers that actually have rules with them. Some of them require you to win a certain amount of matches in a row. Others, they want to use rental Pokemon that aren't really yours. But the main story behind this is the Battle Frontier, it is a challenge. You're not going to run into any of these facilities destroying them completely. The game will also round your Pokemon's level cap to around usually 50 or 100. Therefore, you can't just outstat them anymore. And even if you are smarter than them, you still have to beat them outright because they have better Pokemon than you. I mean, look at some of these teams. They even have legendaries on their team. The goal was to get every single gold symbol, and it took a lot of time to do so. And honestly, this content was harder than the main game. Now, there are ways to cheese through the battles, but even so, it's still a challenge. The unfortunate news is this was such a staple to Emerald that people wanted it inside Oras too, but we didn't get that. Instead, we got the Delta episode with Zinnia. It's not a negative. However, I can't say it's a better add-on than the Battle Frontier. To avoid crazy spoilers, it's mainly just a story add-on. You get a couple of items, an extra battle, even get to catch some Pokemon. But besides that, that's it. So to be completely honest, they should have kept the Battle Frontier. But nothing was wrong with the Zinnia add-on, it's just the fact you needed more. But without spoiling that too much, I want to go ahead and roll into the third one. The final pro is that it's 2v2s. The Hoenn region was the introduction to 2v2s. And for those of you who are not in the competitive scene, I'll tell you right now, this was gold. Competitive battlers to this day do 2v2s. Matter of fact, I don't think they believe in 1v1s anymore. The battles go much quicker, it's much more challenging. Matter of fact, the first opening for Hoenn had a 2v2 battle with Ash and May. So clearly Pokemon wanted this to be something. And I'll tell you right now, they did not fumble. This was a game changer, and it was a great wake-up call for Pokemon to do something different. But here we go. I can only say so many good things, so let's start digging into the bad things. Let's talk about the cons. The first con, the Hoenn region's design is terrible. Nearly half of the map is covered in water, and I used to believe this wasn't actually an issue. However, I went back and played it, and let me tell you, when you realize that half of the game you're spending either diving or surfing, it sucks. Now, anybody that says this, I think, is a valid reasoning, because you don't realize how bad it is until you don't have repels. When you're seeing Tentacruels and Wingles every 5 seconds, it starts to dawn on you. Now listen, I understand, not every single region can be exactly the same, but when you realize that you're having to spend majority of your time either surfing, or you have to get on somebody else's boat to go find the next location, man. But this is a great segue to lead to my next con. The second con, the villains in the game, they're terrible. Team Aqua and Magma are useless. Both teams are just failed clones of Team Rocket. The sad thing is, it's even worse because they're running around with Golbats and Zubats. And don't get me started with the leaders. Archie and Maxie, they don't hold a candle to Giovanni. And don't forget, respectively, they were both saying either I want more water or I want more land. First off, we don't need any more water. We're drowning as is. And then the land dude pulls up here the camera up as if I haven't seen already 50,000 Wingles. While Giovanni's goals were pretty simple, he wanted money and power. I can't be mad about it because at least he felt like a threat. These two feel like idiots. The final con on this list is that the rival was terrible. Brandon and May were the worst rivals thus far in Pokemon. I'm sorry, but Gary is pooping on both of them easy. Brandon/May has no reason to push you whatsoever because they're not really doing anything. They don't have an attitude. They're just your childhood friend. But the worst part about it is the last time you fight them, their Pokemon are around the levels of 30. I mean, this is around the time you're probably getting around your 6th gym badge. There is no final fight. That's it. They're done. Now, to not spoil anything in the future videos, they might be the worst rival possible. It's just terrible. But now we've taken a bite from each side of the Oreo. Therefore, let's go ahead and tally it up. How good is Pokemon Hoenn? This game is a...
Let's get this over with. 1, 2, 3, 4...
Eight out of 10. Now listen, most of you are going to say that, hey, 80%, we passed, woohoo. But compared to Johto and Kanto, I just don't see it. Now, I love Hoenn. Matter of fact, this is the first Pokemon game I've ever played by myself. But the problem is, as a casual player, I cannot see you enjoying this game over the previous two we've mentioned. Now again, we love Hoenn. They brought 2v2s to the game, Pokemon designs, but is it really enough? But listen, maybe you think differently. So tell me, how do you feel about the Hoenn region? It's a love-hate relationship, but regardless how you feel about it, just make sure you're showing respect to other people. But if you made it to the end of this video, I want to say thank y'all for watching. Also, I went ahead and made a Patreon. If you love these videos and want to see this channel continue to grow, consider joining as a member. I love making these videos. Besides, I want to get them out faster, and I know you guys have some great ideas. So if you want to, go ahead and check it out. Besides that, I appreciate y'all watching. Y'all have a good one. Take care.